and welcome back to the Jonah Tech YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to be building my $1,000 pure performance gaming PC for my birthday. I'm super excited since it's going to be my first PC and also because I've always dreamed of making one. I can use the PC in multiple ways such as for rendering, programming, and gaming after I've built it. Like I said, I'm not even going to be spending a single penny on aesthetics such as fancy RGB lights. So let's just get that clear out of the way. I'll put all of my product links in the description so you can check that out as well. So enough of my boring rapping, let's get building. First, let's look at the specs. I found a great deal on Micro Center of a 3-in-1 combo with the CPU, motherboard, and the RAM all inside of it, costing only $399. Buying the combo from Micro Center instead of buying it all individually from Amazon was $170 cheaper, so you knew I had to get it. For the CPU, I was able to go with the Ryzen 7 7700X, an 8-core and 16-thread processor. This is a very good budget CPU since it is very powerful with lots of cores and threads, perfect for rendering and gaming. This CPU will sit on top of an AM5 socket, which will come in handy since we will then be able to use DDR5. Speaking of RAM, the bundle includes 32GB of 2x16GB sticks of Flare RAM from G.Skill. It's fast and it has a 6000 MHz speed, and 32GB of RAM is necessary for our build. For the motherboard, I used the Gigabyte B650 Gaming X-AX V2 motherboard. Not really too much here. Unfortunately, the 7700X is a very powerful processor, so it did not come with the socket. So I chose the Thermalright Peerless Assassin 120SC since it is an outstanding cooler coming with the price tag of $31, which is a nice choice that would excel at doing its job of cooling our 7700X. For storage, I picked up the 1TB SSD from Crucial. It uses PCIe Gen 4 with a 5000 MB per second read and write speed, which I got for $68. Then we have our power supply. I went with the EVGA Supernova G7, which has 650 watts with the 80+ gold rating, costing $89. Next up, our case, the Montech Air 903 Max, a budget PC case that goes for $75. But I was able to get it for even cheaper since I bought it on Prime Day for $70. Finally, what you guys have all been waiting for, the graphics card. I chose AMD's $400 Radeon RX 7700 XT. It's a very nice card for the build since it has 12GB of memory while also having hardware encoding for rendering and video editing softwares. Onto the building portion of this video, I first lodged in the CPU as well as our 2 sticks of RAM, followed by the SSD, which I used the screwdriver to screw it in as well as the screws. Also, I used the CPU cooler, which I followed the manual to take good note of what the steps are and what to do next, as well as a tiny bit of thermal paste, which will conduct the temperature for keeping the CPU. I also make sure that the PSU cables are neat and all the cables go inside the necessary location, as well as plugging in the graphics card as well as the CPU cable. I also plug in the outlet and make sure the PC turns on while it is outside and over a box. So on this step, I do not test it inside the case. Instead, I test it out outside the box, and after that, I take apart all the parts and I take apart the back panel of the case as well as the glass panel, which I use to plug in and build the actual PC. I also screw in our motherboard and I take apart the straps, which help strap all the cables and the parts. This might take a while, but this is used to plug in our Type-C cables and all that. I also use an anti-static strap to make sure that all the parts are shocked and they are good to go. The parts are connected by using a hole that connects to the inside and outside of the case, so the cables run through. I plug in all the cables such as the JFP1 connectors, the HD audio, the RGB ports, and all of that. I also use a flashlight to make sure that I can see all the parts as well as you can see the parts because I am recording this video. All this is built with the help of my father as well as following tech sources how to build a PC. I also screw in our PSU, which is screwed in place, as well as our PSU connectors, cables that needs to be replaced. Lastly, I plug in the GPU, which is the most expensive, if not the most important part of the build, which needs to be handled with care. And to touch things off, I screw in the case, the panels, and the PC is really good to go after I plug in the So first, for the benchmarking, I rendered a donut, which only took about 4 minutes to render on Blender. which my old potato PC would have never been able to handle. The animation really turned out really well and smooth, as you can see here. In order to create this render, I followed Undergroup's tutorial, which was really helpful, but it's pretty long and it is kind of difficult to follow. The next game was Marvel Rivals, which was a new game I picked up. The game was very smooth and the graphics were insanely well. I was constantly getting around 140 FPS and the gameplay was very smooth. Well, I did die a few times. Although sometimes I would have gone 90 FPS, I peaked at 130 FPS. Everything was going well and the PC was running smoothly. Lastly, I hopped on Fortnite to play a few games. I was able to run the game in 1440p with 144 FPS. I was also playing it on a 144 Hz monitor, so it was perfect. The game was so smooth and the graphics were actually insane. I was able to get a few kills, and with this Ultra PC, everything was going great. Considering I was playing with the Nintendo Switch, the difference was actually wild. The Nintendo Switch can only play at 720p and also with 30 frames per second. One of my favorite games is Fortnite, and playing a very competitive and a first-person shooter game is pretty important and very hard when you're playing at a low-spec device. Even though I got killed over here, it was very fun to play. So this is actually going to be the end of the video. Thank you guys all for supporting me and watching my content. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.